Hi everyone, I'm Alexandra Conroy. I'm a performance coach for lawyers. And what I wanted to talk to you about this month was the idea of developing confidence and self-confidence. And I've chosen this topic because I've noticed in my coaching business that I'm fairly consistently working with trainees and associates who identify themselves as lacking in self-confidence. And when we dig in and explore it a bit further, there's often this belief that self-confidence or self-esteem will materialize at some point in the future, perhaps when a particular career milestone has been reached or when they've mastered a particular amount of knowledge in their practice area. And the reason that it concerns me is because I work with first seat trainees who think that this will materialize and magically appear when they become third or fourth seat trainees. And then I work with fourth seat trainees who think that it will magically appear when they become newly qualified associates, and on and on and on. So there's obviously something that's not quite working there. And it also concerns me because if we have this belief that self-confidence or self-esteem will somehow materialize without us thinking about it at some point in the future, then we're not focusing on how is it impacting our behavior and our performance right now, and what can we proactively do right now to build our self-confidence. So I think it's a missed opportunity in the moment. And so what I wanted to do is really talk about some tips to help us build that self-confidence and build that self-esteem rather than sort of sitting around and hoping that it will materialize at some point in the future. So the first thing I think it's helpful to do is distinguish between confidence and self-confidence. So confidence is this idea that you feel competent in a particular area of your life or a particular skill or task. And that is developed through practice and experience. The more you practice a particular task, the more experienced you'll be, the more confident you will feel. And that should absolutely be part of your performance strategy for work. Whatever tasks you're given, you want to practice them, gain competence, gain experience, and feel confident. And then when you've mastered those, what's next? Let's move on to the next one. But the thing to think about is that enough? And that's where we distinguish between confidence in particular specific tasks and self-confidence more broadly. So self-confidence is this idea that whilst I may not know how to do something yet, I have confidence in my ability to figure it out and to rise to the challenge. And that's the thing that I want to explore developing. Because it's certainly something that we need in the legal industry. It would be great if we worked in a job where there were 5 tasks, 5 skills that we had to master, and once we nailed those, we could be confident for life. But unfortunately, that is not the reality of the legal industry and many other industries, where the industry itself is continuously developing and changing, but also our job criteria and expectations are continuously changing as we move up. So we need to be able to not base our identity of confidence around our expertise in specific skills. We need to feel self-confident that we will rise to the new challenges. So the first thing I think to do is to learn to take a step back and take a broader perspective of what you're doing. So I'm sure that over the last couple of weeks you will have been given something new to do that you had no clue how to do. And I'm also fairly confident that you will have survived that experience. And so the next time when you're given something else new and scary to do, I want you to take a breath and think, well, I was given something new and scary last week and I used the resources available to me and I survived the experience. In that way, you'll build your identity as someone who, no matter what the task, you can figure it out. You'll use the resources and you'll get the job done. And therefore, over time, you're building this new identity and this new self-confidence. So that's number one. Number two is to develop self-compassion. And I know that self-compassion can sometimes be viewed as a bit soft or as a nice to have, but it is actually hugely important in developing resilience. People who lack self-compassion, and it is something that you have to proactively develop, but people who lack self-compassion are often the people who will waste time, because when they fail at something or receive negative feedback, they will waste time in negative self-talk and overwhelm. Whereas people who have learned to develop self-compassion will take on negative feedback and will realize that they're only human, that you can't do something perfectly the first time, and that failures are part of the learning experience. And so they will more quickly move towards how do I fix it? What can I learn? What's next? So self-compassion, hugely important for building resilience and moving forward more quickly and taking on constructive feedback. And you can build self-compassion in many ways. One of the first thing to do is just notice your negative self-talk and think, would I speak to a good friend that way? And if not, try to stop or reel in your own negative self-talk. So self-compassion, number 2. Number 3 is to practice using your strengths in a work context. So what kind of things are you good at? And what do you enjoy? What energizes you? What comes to you easily that is more difficult for other people? Things like a love of learning, or maybe you have fantastic empathy or great social connection, or maybe you have courage. You know, every time you learn something new, there's this moment where you need courage. So how can you tap into that to build your self-confidence over time? Building on our existing strengths helps our performance and also helps build confidence over time. And then finally, comparison. Please be careful about comparing yourself to other people in your peer group. Sometimes competitiveness can be helpful if it motivates you to learn new skills, but notice if it's unhelpful. If you are comparing yourself in a negative way and then going into negative self-talk and overwhelm, then it's unhelpful. Stay in your own lane. Yes, push yourself to improve. Make sure you get constructive feedback and act on it, but don't constantly compare yourself to other people. It's unhelpful. You need to stay in your lane and stay focused. So that's it. Those are my 4 quick tips. If you want to know more, or if you're struggling with any of those or want to delve a bit deeper, then feel free to reach out to me and we can work together one-on-one. My email is alex@alexandraconroy.co.uk, or you can reach me via my website, www.alexandraconroy.co.uk. That's it for this month. Have a fantastic month and I will see you next time.